4, 3, 2, 1.
I mentioned being at the stadium tour. There's something else special about that stadium and about that weekend. I got called on Saturday by John Bishop, who is a detective out of Oklahoma. If you guys are familiar with 3 Men and a Mystery Season 2, he's the detective that did a bunch of analysis, does believe that Elisa Gomez was murdered, has been trying to raise exposure and push that ever since. I got a call from him on Saturday telling me the case had been reopened by Minneapolis PD. Huge, huge. And we've been working with a local television reporter for a few months at this point because he wanted to do a big feature on it. It's really interesting how this thing gets reopened. There's lessons in it. There's also questions in it. And basically I want to record an episode for Wednesday's release. So we're going to do that. But we've also got new segments to watch. And I told you guys I went to the stadium show on Sunday. Well, it's on my mind that, wow, this case is being reopened. My mind's kind of blown. I'm walking in to get to our seats. I look over to the right. And I'm not sure if many of you are aware. Hey, Catherine. But Elisa Gomez actually worked on a mural that's at US Bank Stadium. And my friend stopped. This whole thing, just the energy of it was just, it's very moving to me. There was a merch booth there, and, you know, that's where I got this shirt. My friend wanted to stop there, and he's in line, and I just turn around, and I'm like staring at this giant mural, and I know it's the one. So I walked over to it. I took a picture with it. I don't know if you can really see, but her name is literally right here. And I sent it to her mother and her sister and just told them where I was. And, you know, that I was thinking about her, and it was pretty emotional. I got a little misty-eyed around that. And then the reporter was in touch, and he was telling me, he's like, John, I had already done some filming with them. I went down to the station and recorded for about an hour with them. He was telling me they had a new segment ready. I wasn't going to be in that one, but they wanted more footage. They actually wanted to come here to my home studio and record some more. And then there was going to be another piece that would be released about that. So this is the first one. It was released on Monday. They did a teaser in the 6 o'clock. That was like a little 2 or 3 minute thing. This is the longer segment from 10 o'clock. And guys, I just have to say, you know, I've got certain challenges in terms of looking at news and how they work. I mean, because it's something I do all the time, is consume their content, because basically I'm looking for information to help create ours. And to see a local station kind of take the steps that they did, and to even get a 10-minute, like a full 10-minute segment on a 10 o'clock newscast, that's a challenge in itself.
Tonight, the story of a woman who died just hours after her wedding. For years, Minneapolis police said she was not murdered. And Eric, it's just the latest twist in a mystery that you've been investigating for months.
Lindsay, family members have been pleading with police to take another look at this case ever since Elisa Gomez was found dead in her home almost 6 years ago.
We thought they were going to do an investigation, but they really never did.
A mystery that's haunted Elisa's family ever since. Before Elisa Ann Gomez met Bradley James Alexander in the summer of 2016, Gomez had already made a life for herself as an artist who collaborated on a mural at US Bank Stadium, a teacher at a Korean immersion school in St. Paul, and an animal lover with her own dog-sitting business. Despite plans for a big wedding that spring, Brad and Elisa suddenly decided to get married at this service center in Edina around 5 p.m.
It went so fast, I just figured there's something wrong here.
So I came and walked this, I took photographs.
John Bishop is a police captain in Oklahoma who's originally from Minnesota.
Elisa had been drinking, but she wasn't drunk.
After seeing early reports about Elisa's death, Bishop volunteered to help her family investigate.
From your wedding day on your wedding night to a body bag, that's a lot. That's very suspicious.
Police came out for a second 911 call, this time from Elisa's roommate Sharon, to report Elisa had hanged herself. The roommate said she had already cut Elisa down. She told police it was Brad who first found her hanging in the couple's basement bedroom.
This doesn't look cut, but that's hair, isn't that? That's hair.
Officer Daniel Willis was the first to call this a crime scene.
You're gonna need how much of it out here? He needs to be out. This not straight up DOA.
In this autopsy report, the Hennepin County Medical Examiner ruled Elisa's cause of death as ligature hanging under uncertain circumstances, adding they cannot exclude potential injury by another person. But several outside investigators say police did not follow up with Brad, the roommate, or others who may have been there.
There's just no way she fell straight down, hanging by her neck, into the room.
I wanted to tell you, police say they are reopening this investigation.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna cry. I'm sorry.
That's awesome.
Are you kidding me?
I'm serious.
Oh my gosh.
Before we continue anything, for Eric Rasmussen, are you kidding me? You can't fake that type, the way he's speaking about the case and the feelings he has. You can't fake that. The dude has been working extremely hard on this for months. And part of why I want to record this episode for Wednesday is to talk about how it actually came through and the piece of information. We've had it. We've had it this whole time. It took the right person that had the right connection to get that thing looked at again. It's a really bizarre, and there's a huge lesson in it for me, just about not giving up, even when you feel like you've ran everything. You know, we've tried everything. It was literally a few sheets of paper that we know had been taken to the police department that got this thing turned over. Really, really crazy. So then the next night, another segment. And in this, if you guys are wondering what it looks like right behind this screen and all around this and actually the monitor setup, you're about to find out. Let's go ahead and do this.
A day after 5 investigators broke the news that Minneapolis police reopened the 2016 death case of newlywed Elisa Gomez. Her story continues to grip people across the state and the country.
And investigative reporter Eric Rasmussen found interest in that unsolved wedding night mystery goes beyond her family and the investigators who helped them get to this point, Eric.
Before police recently reopened the investigation into what happened to Elisa Gomez, her story touched an international audience online thanks to a true crime podcaster who spent years looking into this case.
My mind was blown. I didn't think that we were going to get to that.
From his home studio, podcast producer John Lorden reached thousands of people.
Welcome back to 3 Men and a Mystery.
When he and his team on 3 Men and a Mystery told the story of newlywed Elisa Gomez over 11 episodes. Police found Elisa's body at her home in South Minneapolis just hours after she got married in 2016. Investigators originally closed the case as an apparent suicide.
Just the shock of someone ending their own life on their wedding day. Like, I went looking for other occurrences of that, and I couldn't find it.
Lorden first spoke with us in June at a time when Elisa's family says the efforts to get police to take another look at her case were falling flat.
We live with this the pain of this every day, day in and day out, because we cannot get justice.
Now a breakthrough. Police are reopening the case after 5 investigators obtained this 2019 memo from the state that criticized how the original investigation was conducted. MPD said current leaders of its homicide unit were not aware of the letter until we asked about it.
We don't know where it's going to lead from here, but glad to hear that they are taking a fresh look at it.
A look that Lorden and his team first gave this case in 2019 and 2020 when they interviewed experts from across the country.
There was nothing from the information that I have that I would say this woman needs a risk assessment for suicidal ideation.
I completely agree.
Two top forensic psychologists from California.
It doesn't feel right.
Right.
It just doesn't feel right.
Not convinced that Elisa Gomez took her own life.
This isn't a character in a 1-hour episode that you're watching on TV, and by the end of that episode, you don't have to care anymore. This is a woman that was contributing to her community in significant ways.
No one has been named a suspect in the death of Elisa Gomez, including the roommate who called 911 or Elisa's new husband who told police he found her body. Now, as police begin their new investigation into this case, of course, we'll continue to follow up.
It moves me. It really moves me. There was some times there where it was really kind of touch and go with the family, and then feeling like what could they do next? Like, especially they got this big rush of attention. Like, I started doing interviews with them. We started doing the research for 3 Men. Gray says, I didn't even realize we were going to be on the interview, so my answer sucked. Gray, that's why I was hooping you guys in, man. We saw you back there. But you take them through this process of, you're doing this full podcast. We're bringing in experts. They're listening to the episodes. They're hearing things that are like, wow, this expert thinks that there might be something to this. This other expert thinks there might be something to this. And then you kind of finish that process. The show ends. And of course, you guys know I do my best to stay connected. I kind of consider it like you're part of the Lorden Arts aftercare family, if we've covered you on any of the shows. So, every now and then just get a message from Judy. Do you think we should try this? Do you think we should try that? I'll tell you, the X factor here was really John Bishop, because Bishop just would not stop, wouldn't let it go, has been out here several times since. Pretty much, I think just about every time he comes out, we meet up. But he was also writing up letters and firing them off to everybody. Trust me, our governor, the mayor of Minneapolis, their offices, if not them directly, are very, very aware of this case and the issues around this case. And he just wouldn't stop. The big lesson is that the piece that we needed, we already had. We just didn't have the channels to put it into play, which is ridiculous. And I saw someone's comment on this too. You're absolutely right. Why does it take that level of attention, or that level, literally media level coverage, to get law enforcement's attention? I was with them on the day they had that letter and they went in, and I wasn't the only one with them. We had an actual representative from that department, the Justice Department at the state level, that came down, went into the meeting with them. They didn't think it was a good idea for me to go in. John Bishop has told me several times that the homicide unit, they don't want me in there. They're afraid I'm going to record what they're saying. They're afraid I'm going to come out with some kind of analysis or nonsense. But I still go. I still go. I was down at the police station. I was there. We spoke to the representative. Her name was Rebecca. We spoke to her before she went in and kind of just drilled out, okay, like, what are the big points that we're pushing for here? Re-interview Brad. Re-interview Sharon. Get some more DNA testing done. We need to know if there's any DNA on the scarf, if that's helpful. And, obviously, as we went through 3 Men and really started analyzing this, we came to that conclusion. I was speaking to a former police officer about it this morning, and he was kind of hitting the same thing. Well, what about DNA? Do they do DNA? The problem is Brad lived there. They got married that day, but he had been living there for a while. His DNA is going to be all over the place. So unless you had it on something in particular, might it have been helpful if they found his DNA on the scarf? Maybe, but that's not going to win a case. That's not going to be enough to do it. So there's a lot of kind of lessons and questions that I got in this. And it really sucks that despite that meeting that happened years ago, it did get a little movement. They did do some more DNA testing. I think they said they were going to re-interview Brad and Sharon. I don't know if that actually really ever happened. I can tell you Bishop has been trying to get a hold of both of those people, and it it just was not successful. Sharon's kind of did the same thing with him that she did with me, would just kind of say like, okay, I'm willing to talk to you. Let's do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow would come and, you know, she just wouldn't show up, or she would reset, and you just never get to the point of her actually sitting down and talking about it. But that also points back to some of the problems with the original investigation, like the nail clipper story. It sticks out to so many people. I mean, you guys, you know, are hearing it in a news segment, you're asking about it right off the bat. Why wouldn't a homicide unit investigator that shows up to this scene, which I also have to say, my hat is off to that police officer. He was being very plain talking to another cop there, because that came from body cam footage about the fact that, hey, this guy could have done it. Like, I mean, those instincts, where were those instincts when the homicide unit showed up? Because I heard those, we played most of those interviews on the show. They were not strong interviews. Nail clipper story, it might be true. I'm not saying it's not true, but there's so many things about it that are questionable. Just figure it out. Just figure it out. You know, she says she cut her down with nail clippers. How could that really work? And she says she was hanging, but when we walk in, I mean, to John's point, I'm like, it's very obvious. Her body is not directly in the position. Like, if she fell straight down, her body would be in a different part of the room, essentially. Just some of those questions that should have been addressed in the moment when they were there. Now, where do I think it's going to go from here? I'll tell you one of my big fears, because I believe this is a comment that the family had heard from previous investigators on this. Actually, one of the investigators that worked the scene. We can't go back. We can't go back in time and do things different than we did. And I think that's going to be a very big challenge when it comes with this case. How do you move it forward with the information you have now and capitalize on that? And I don't know if there is services, like, you know, we talked to Dr. Laura Petler. I don't know if Minneapolis Police Department has regular access to experts of that level. I don't know if they do. She doesn't work for free. Like, she worked, you know, she came and did the show for us. She's a friend, but she doesn't work for free. So if they get the right people asking the right question, and then if they're willing to put, I don't know if you have to pay these experts, whatever, if they get the right people in the room to do the analysis, to Gray's point, the beam's too low, the scarf's too long, the lividity doesn't fit, we've got molding on her legs that looks like she was actually laying on the ground for a longer period of time than's being reported in the official police report. We've got the weird story about some potential that Sharon's aunt came and picked up the kids, and there was no police response there at that time, but we know that it was only a 5-minute gap from when the 911 call happened to when they actually showed up at the site. Questions, and to the point of that report that came from that the Office of Justice, inconsistencies. If they focus on that, we've got a chance. And if nothing else, at this point, we have a chance that we did not have before. We had a trump card that we could not get on the table, and Eric Rasmussen was able to do that.
Four, three, two, one.